Chefs don't burn out from cooking too much. They burn out from losing control. I've worked in kitchens like Noma and Mugaritz, cooked for the most privileged guests on the planet, and plated the most perfect dishes. And yet, I've never felt so powerless. Because the truth is, kitchen burnout isn't really about hours. It is about agency. About who gets to decide why you cook, what you cook, and who it really serves. In this episode, I share how I lost control, how I rebuilt it, and what can you do to take yours back. So when I first got into cooking, I was obsessed with Anthony Bourdain. I read all his books. I watched Kitchen Confidential as a 14, 12-year-old all the time. And I was obsessed with his world of how he made kitchens look raw, romantic, and even free. I would say his version of showing kitchen. Of course, there was a lot of abuse. Of course, there's a lot of, not very appetizing details. But he made it feel free. It made it feel like he was at the hem of that journey, you know. And I thought being a chef meant freedom. Honestly, that's what I said people in the beginning when I wanted to be a chef, that yes, that's the version of a career I see. And it looked like it'll be a mix of creativity, also chaos, but a lot of craft, of a lot of doing something you like. But the deeper I went into fine dining, I started realizing how little control did I really have. In kitchens like Mugaritz or Noma, there's possibly one person's vision who's heading the restaurant or who's the face of the restaurant, a few chefs in the R&D department also executing that vision with few inputs from them. But beyond that, nobody else has a vision. Everybody else just executes, just copies, just mimics it, just makes sure it is as consistent and boring that it gets in every day's operation. You're told what is beautiful, what is creative, what is worth your time, what lines of investigation should you look at, what lines of colors should you look at, what kinds of ingredients you should look at, but everything else is beyond discussion. I remember spending weeks preparing a presentation on sustainability. So this was around the time I was in Mugaritz. I was given a scholarship to study sustainability and environment for a 2-week crash course by Mad Academy in Copenhagen, run by Magnus Nilsson and René Redzepi. And over there, I learned a lot of inputs, which I felt I could come back to the restaurant in Mugaritz and I could again give some sort of input from my position. I was one of the few chef de parties in the team, and Mugaritz just has a head chef and 5 chef de parties. That's all the people in the kitchen's operation team. Apart from that, it's all stagiaires. So I was one of 7 people employed in the restaurant kitchen. And yet the presentation I made like a massive presentation with things that Mugaritz could have improved to do more sustainable projects, or do in their everyday supply, everyday procurement of supplies, everyday operation of the kitchen itself, could have made it more sustainable. It was just ignored. It was just like, it's not something that's not important for the restaurant itself. And I realized how little do people care about your opinion if you're not the person who's the face of the restaurant, and how important can you feel in your own bubble, but in the whole reality of how restaurants work, it is not a very creative job at the end of the day. I mean, it's sad to break it for you, but if you don't realize that yet, it's one of the most boring jobs to be in a kitchen, which looks creative to the public, but it is not creative for the people working in it. I realized that the system doesn't need your ideas. The system of fine dining doesn't need doesn't need inputs. It just needs hours. It just needs people who are very good at their skills, very good at replicating, very good at repeating, but it doesn't need personality. It kills personality. And when you start to feel like your mind and body belong to the system, that's when the burnout begins. And that's what I have witnessed with all the chefs I've spoken to. Most of them who've left restaurants or come out of restaurant kitchens have left for this very reason, because they felt that they were working in a place which could not share their vision, or which did not have space where they could contribute to the vision of the restaurant. So I used to think in the beginning that burnout came from long shifts, and I thought that for myself as well. But when I introspected while listening to other stories, I realized that even on my day offs, I was exhausted. You don't have any energy on your day offs, and it's not physical, it's emotional. It's emotional because you can't really read, you can't connect, you can't create, you can't connect with the people you hang out with. You go out for meals or experiences, you feel nothing, because it's not really tiredness, it's disconnection. And that's what I speak to many guests on the podcast. And for many chefs, it shows up as repeating tasks without purpose, just doing something because you've been told to do it that way, never being heard, no structure for growth, like many restaurant kitchens don't really have a career map for you. Like, how can you grow within the restaurant, even if it is? There's toxic competition, there's favoritism, there's a lot of politics within restaurant kitchens, and you feel replaceable even when you're talented. That's the whole fact of a restaurant operation. And you start losing not just energy. I don't think it's energy. Many people confuse watching The Bear or watching all these famous celebrity culture that kitchen burnout is about hours, but I believe it's about agency. It's about losing that control of your career, or of what you had an idea of your career. So for me, everything changed when I left the restaurant world. When I started in this R&D position I work at the Basque Culinary Center, designing projects that align with my values. I choose the ideas I want to chase. Of course, there is also a system to run this department, but most times it's me who comes up with an initiative that, okay, I'm interested in, for example, a company which makes salmon, a vegan salmon from seaweed. So if I'm interested in that company, if I see them somewhere on LinkedIn, or see some product of them, I can approach to them, tell them, hey, you know what, we can do applications for your recipes, or we can improve your recipe, make it more efficient. We can connect you with possibly B2B business of clients of ours who would like to buy your product. And I get this authority to be able to approach these companies, work with them on projects. I also work in projects that align with my value. Like through my work, I have traveled to Egypt, for example, improving school meals. So again, there's a lot of agency in my work today, that I still work with food. I still work with, I feel, more impactful food, because at the end of the day, finding and dining restaurants serve very few people at a very high price. So that is, of course, not the definition of being accessible, of adding value to the food system. So I feel I can, speak directly with founders, as I said, food innovators, collaborate with scientists, with my colleagues, travel with new cultures. Like recently, I've been traveling to Jamaica, Mexico, India, exploring what spiciness means or what hotness means with a project from my company. And that's all still hard work, and that's all still very much more complicated. It still requires a lot of time. It still requires a lot of hours, and sometimes it's good hours that you want to work. Sometimes it's hours you don't want to work. But again, you don't feel that burnout, because it's not about the physical aspect of working long. It's about if your work is purposeful, if your work is aligned with your values, if you have room in your work to be able to contribute to it, to be creative. And that's what many of us chefs look for. I have headspace, and above all, I feel heard again. I feel that I'm contributing to something valuable. So I feel that's what control looks like. It doesn't look like fame. It doesn't look like status. It doesn't look like, just being in this bubble of what feels relevant to you in your head, and you think the greater world thinks that is relevant. To work at a fancy restaurant with a fancy name isn't, for me, the definition of success today. For me, it is about alignment with your own values. It's about having a space where you can be creative. And I'm not alone in this. Dan Justi, one of our earlier guests on the podcast, he left Noma being a head chef over there, and he clearly said that he never felt kitchen burnout. He wasn't burnt out himself, but he felt he had a bigger purpose to serve. And he is today working, he found this company called The Brigade, which puts talented chefs who are qualified to cook inside school kitchens, which is something very noble. I feel it's putting nutrition on really where it matters. So people like him, or Ned Bell, who cycled all through Canada to just get this country around the idea of what ocean sustainability means and how much chefs can contribute to it. I think what he's doing is amazing. What Wojtek is doing with his project of, like, he built the first zero waste restaurant in Asia. Then he came to where he is from, Slovakia, and he does today a lot of content and storytelling around how can you cook a single vegetable. He takes a carrot, for example, makes 25 elaborations from it, and most of them come from things that we throw in the bin. And he's been now collaborating with a company called Winnow, which makes food tracking systems for restaurants, where you can throw something in your garbage and there's a camera above your bin which scans how much plate waste do you have, how much food waste your kitchen creates. And Wojtek makes recipes around this. So there's a lot of careers outside kitchens which use the same talent that you've grown in the kitchens, but you become more relevant. You have more agency. You have more control over what you're doing. You have more room to be creative. And they stopped waiting for permission. I think that's what's common between all the guests I've had, with myself, with all the people who I've heard have left restaurant kitchens. One thing very common is they stop waiting for permission. The same control I've been speaking about, to have that control, nobody's going to give you that on a silver platter. I mean, you have to go, if you believe in that mission for yourself, and if you believe that you have something that requires to be heard, you can't just complain to be wanted to be heard. You have to take the first move. Like Dan just didn't wait for somebody to come say, hey, you know what, my school needs a cook. Wojtek didn't wait for being invited by food tech companies. And Chef Ned Bell, for example, he didn't wait for restaurants to say, tell us what fish is better to eat in which season to keep the ocean healthy. These guys took the first step, took the plunge, and made this move to go out there and test their concepts. And it can be something small, like Sorme does a secret supper club. She's been on a podcast, and she does the secret supper club in Iran, and she's not been waiting for people to tell her, hey, do a secret supper club. She takes the first step, and that's what one of the biggest messages of her podcast was, that you have to believe in yourself. You have to make the first move and escape this toxic culture of being in a place which doesn't value you, which doesn't consider you creative, which doesn't give you room to be creative. and just be over there because it sounds like a cool job title, or because it sounds like your colleagues will think that, hey, why would you leave a job like that? And if you're listening and you feel stuck, here's where you start. First of all, audit your work life. Note when you feel proud, when you feel powerless. That's your control map. Like, make notes of what things of your career, in the past few years, have been the places you felt the most powerful, and the places where you feel the most powerless. Redefine growth. I think climbing ranks in the kitchen could be growth, yes, but it's more powerful to build your own voice, to build a purpose around what you really believe in. Choose agency over approval. So it's better to be a small creator of your own world than a silent executor in someone else's. If you're a small piece of a massive puzzle, you can't really make a difference if that's what your purpose of your life is. So you have to make something work which is yours, and you have more agency over it, you have more control over it. And finally, ask for help. That's one thing. Johnny Drain on the podcast, our first guest this season, he said it very clearly. Like, he approached a lot of restaurants after his PhD in material science to work around what he wanted to, around ferments. And he wrote to everybody, and he said it's most likely people will write back to you, people will help you. And he got the reply from Noma in back in the day when Noma was in the old space. And he was over there with many talented people building the whole future of what restaurant fermentation looks like today. So you need to ask for help. You need to go out and ask for help. And this is one of the places, I mean, if this hits close to home, I want you to know this, that you don't need fewer shifts. You don't need less hours. That's not going to save you. That's not going to bring that savior of kitchen burnout for you. Taking a break could help, but I mean, I feel physically removing yourself from a kitchen is what can make the big difference. But also, not just that, you have to get control. So maybe that could be within restaurants. Maybe within restaurants, you have a place which is healthy and it lets you contribute to it. But that agency and getting that ownership is what's going to change, replace that burnout with fulfillment. And that's what we are building inside this podcast, inside the Fugitive Chef Circle. It's a community for chefs and culinary students who are figuring out what's coming after restaurants, like what careers can you do after restaurants. So we are building mentorship programs, small focus groups, shared resources where you can learn directly from the people that I spoke to you about, the people I've spoken to in the podcast. They have figured out the ways. And we wish to help you out with your transition, with this transformation that you want to make with your career. So if you're ready to take back control, join the circle. The link is in bio and in the description out here. So I would say reach out to me. Let me know what is it that you're looking for and how can we really help you. Keep listening to other people in this podcast who might inspire the path you want to take. And I'm Furqan. This is Fugitive Chefs. And I wanted to just share that burnout isn't about hours. It's about ownership, agency, and control.